Hey guys, Aaron Brown here with Axis Lab 3D Printing. I'm excited about this one. I'm going to be doing somewhat of a hybrid unboxing and first impression review of the Wanhao Duplicator i3 Plus. This is the newest iteration of the Wanhao i3. From their version 1 to their 2, they have their 2.1, which is starting to be shipped now. This kind of is a big change from what we know from the previous machines. We do know that it's now an all-in-one unit, so the control box is built into the bottom of the printer itself. We do know it's got a touchscreen on it, and one thing that I'm really happy to see is a full-size SD card slot. Other than that, we're not entirely sure some of the other mods that they've changed. There's been questions about the pillow blocks on the back, where there was some instances of belt rubbing. From what I saw in a picture, I believe that's changed. I believe we've got some of the thumb wheels already. We'll find out as soon as we get into this box. Before I get into that, for these to get to me, there's actually somewhat of a funny story. Now Wanhao, before I get into it, I do want to say Wanhao, their customer support has always been positive. They're very proactive on fixing any issues, but issues do come up with them, so they're not exempt. These ones actually got shipped to the wrong person. Not just the wrong person, but the wrong Aaron. There's another Aaron in their system that a few months back bought a machine, and to his surprise, woke up one day with 2 mystery machines at his door. And coincidentally, he's a friend on the Wanhao Duplicator users group. So he posted online, mystery machine showed up, and when I saw that, I said, I'm not joking, you have my machines. So I do have to apologize on behalf of Wanhao for the mix-up. They kind of screwed up on this one, but Aaron, I really appreciate you working with us to get them back in the mail and get them shipped to their rightful home. I don't think Wanhao did anything to kind of compensate you for your troubles and your efforts. I don't have much on my end. I have maybe about 10 spools of filament here in the shop, but I do want to say that I'm going to mail you a few spools of filament just to show my appreciation for you sending the machines to me, and to compensate you for the time of even just driving to the store. One of these is actually Isun wood fill, so if you haven't had any chance to experiment with some of the exotic materials like wood filament, might be a nice little treat in there. So these are going in the mailbox. Aaron Turnbull, or as Wanhao calls us, the other Aaron, thank you for helping these machines find their way home. So, with that said, the fun part, what's in the boxes. And I think it's time to cut some straps and interrogate these machines from their worldwide trip of errands and see how they held up going through shipping from China, FedEx, and then UPS back to here being reshipped. So we'll see how they stood the test of the travels. All right, time for the good stuff. I moved the camera around a little bit so we could get a little bit better of a view. I should add, of the 2 machines that got shipped to me, only one of them is actually mine for either store display or personal use. So to decide which one I was going to use for the video, I looked at which one and which box had the most battle damage on it. I saw this one was a little torn, had a couple holes here, was slightly more scraped up than the other box, so I figured, hey, that's the one. If it's been through the most travel and the most abuse, then that's the one that I want to open up for the video. The markings on the box, pretty standard. You know, they have a picture of the machine. I don't know if I can hold this up to the camera at all for any view. A lot of people have seen pictures of these boxes already. Basically says the standard stuff. Print directly from SD card, which is nice. You don't have to have your computer plugged into it. They say a large print area, 200 by 200 by 180. This is essentially the same gantry setup. Well, it is the same gantry setup as any of the previous Wanhao machines. So 8 by 8 by 7 roughly build area. That's exactly the same as any of the other machines. The difference is the control board being built in, and some things have been changed on the carriage, I believe, such as wiring and things like that, but we'll find out. They say sturdy construction. It's an all-metal frame, so they can say that. It's not just, you know, a plexiglass or wood frame. Heated build print area, 3-point bearing system for smoother prints. We'll see. And works with, you know, the standard files. It's an open source machine, so Cura, Repetier host. I'm a Simplify 3D user, so, but it'll work with whatever software you want. All right, the fun stuff. I'm kind of excited. Let's crack this baby open and see what's inside. Hopefully she survived all the shipping and is ready to melt some plastic. So if you guys are ready, then I'm ready. First thing we'll do is cut off those straps, pull those right off of there. Go ahead and try not to stab myself in the hand with my dull scissors. They say dull blades are more dangerous than sharp blades because they have a higher tendency to slip. So, fun fact, you learned something. And opening the box. Okay, well, first thing I see, it's all black foam. I know I've opened dozens of the other machines, so they're using a different padding, or at least a different color padding. And first impression, normally when I open these, they have, you know, the filament sample and the instructions for unboxing. So this is just a flat, plain box. They still want to keep us in suspense of what's in here, just a mystery. One thing I have learned from previous unboxings, instead of just lifting this out of here, it's actually recommended to lift it out. Ha! I see a printer in there. So we've got an extra sheet of the build tech, still with the spelling errors, where it says, instead of never touch it, it says never tow it. So they're still using the same build tech sheets. The standard sample, PLA, print temp, you know, has recommended print temperatures on there. So I'm going to cut some of the tape. Well, first thing I can see right off the bat, I don't see any rubbing on the pillow blocks. Looks like they have done some modifications. I don't have one here to compare it with. I see the bearing assembly. What holds the bearing is different. They're using a single long bearing back here. I'm going to get this plastic out of the way. Oh, this just lifts right off of here. Oh, it's got that new printer smell. I like that. So shiny. So it's two-piece construction. It's actually, I'm going to cut this large zip tie off. They've always used this. One thing I can see right away is my motor and hot end here is completely loose. Something looks like it did break away during shipping. The screw that mounts and holds it in there right there must have fallen away. So if it's only the screw that fell off, that's not too big a deal. We see they are using the ribbon cable now, which we did see a lot of pictures and previews. So all the wiring is going to run up into a ribbon cable. And this is completely separate. So set that aside. That's a problem. But again, it's just a matter of those screws have fallen out. So hopefully we find them. Make sure they're not on any of this stuff. All right, the box. There was actually one, if you saw one of my previous videos, where I unboxed 5 of these machines at once. They were the version 2s. One of them actually was missing the box. So, just for reference, everything that's in the box, we have a micro SD memory card, which okay, I didn't see it in the package, but it's already in the SD card slot. It looks like they're still using some of the same memory cards that the earlier ones shipped with. One of the first things I do is I swap these out for a better memory card. I will test this and see if it works. I mean, if it works, don't throw it away, but if I see any G-code errors, or if the printer randomly pauses, or it seems to freeze up when I try to load a file on there, then you buy a new memory card pretty easy. The standard USB cable, power supply. This is a new spool holder. This is different from what I'm used to on the other ones. It's shorter. Oh, okay, so. Well, okay, that's interesting. Just for starters, I didn't know that it came with a new spool holder. It is a bit narrow. I have seen some wider spools in the past. I'll have to test, make sure it would fit. One thing I could tell you, it would never fit any of the, like the 5 kilogram spools or any of the large spools, but that's the difference. You still have the, oh, you almost have to mount it on the top then, I guess. There's no control box to mount it on. Before we had the option of mounting it on a control box. Now it's top mount or print your own. Something to think about. So top mounted spool holder has been changed. They're still throwing in the putty knife, which, you know, for a budget printer, you know, you're still getting some basic tools. The 4 screws to assemble the gantry on. Well, there's 6 screws in here, 2 of them for the spool holder, a couple zip ties, spare PTFE tube, and the wrenches. Okay. Put all that back in the box. So I can see right away they have a bottom on the printer, so it's not just everything exposed. I'm worried about this missing screw though. That should be in here somewhere. Aha! There's the runaway screw. So we've had 2 runaway printers that went to the wrong location, and here's a runaway screw to hold the yep, okay, the other one's still in there, it's just loose, because I know it takes 2 screws to hold that in there. The other one's still in there, and here's this one. So just doing a quick visual check. They're not using tape on the end stops, at least on the X. The Z end stop, which a lot of people had issues where that Z end stop would pop off. They no longer have tape on there, but I don't see any damage. Okay. So, a lot of changes have been made. This is a full, solid, enclosed unit on both sides. So there's a new top plate here and bottom plate here. On the sides, we have the full-size SD card slot, which I really like to see that. There's I would only assume that's the emergency stop button, unless it's some sort of a reset button, but looks like we do have an emergency stop button because we don't see anything, no knobs or anything on the touchscreen. Touchscreen does not look damaged in any way. The bed, get these cords and wires out of the way. Everything else looks like it's ready to go. It's a nice looking unit. It's a big improvement. We do have the thumb wheels on here. The orientation that they have, and I'll do some close-ups once I get everything together. There is no more belt rub on, they completely eliminated the pillow block from the top, and they went with kind of a bracket that locks the bearing in there. So no more belt rub. It seems like that was a lot of people's issue on the forums. Like, I can't believe they haven't even fixed the belt rub issue. Well, they have. So there you go. I guess it's time now. I'm gonna run through and get this thing assembled, put everything together. I'm gonna tighten this back up. It's a minor issue, but for somebody, if this was their first printer and they didn't know what to do, and especially if they just tossed this bag without looking for the screw, that could be a pain in the butt. But it's going to be a 2-second fix for me. So I'm going to go ahead and get this together, get this tape off, and we'll go on a more thorough review of the machine right after that. Okay, well, everything went together really smoothly, actually. Pretty straightforward. The screws to fit the motor and the hot end and the heater block on there. That was all. It was just a matter of just tightening that screw, putting the other screw back in. So if anything had to go wrong, that's probably one of the easiest things that could be fixed. And I actually just realized while shooting this, we have a 40mm fan here on the front. So they've actually upgraded the parts cooling fan with a new fan and shrouds. We've got two 40mm fans, and all the wiring runs back. I may pull the camera off so we can get a better view of what we have going on here. So let me apologize, it might get a little shaky. And I'll try to steady myself for a little close-up. Everything was labeled, so the A snapped into the A motor. We have the B's, the C was on the other end. The only other thing was the Z-axis limit switch. The Y and everything was already wired. Everything that's in the bed is already wired together. But up here, I'm trying not to shake, you can see the new bearing brackets, or the new clip that the bearings hold on to. No belt rubbing at all. So they've completely eliminated that. Time will tell whether these hold up well. If not, there are files people can print and print new brackets. But the ribbon cable was loose. They had it kind of hiding up here, and I'll try to get a shot. There, right there. It just plugs right into there. And originally I was worried about that because, okay, let's say even though they've upgraded the fan, let's say I want to throw a blower fan on there, and it looks like they've eliminated the little quick release for fans. Looking at it, it may just clip right into the board. If we pulled this off, I don't know for sure, but I think I could just unplug that fan and plug another fan in. So if that's the case, then it's still going to be really easy to, if you break a fin on your fan, you can swap one out really quick. Or if you want to upgrade to a blower and a shroud, I think it's still going to be pretty easy. So if that's the case, I like what I see. The cable ribbon itself, we'll have to do some testing and see if that's going to be a pro or a con. For the most part, I'm pretty impressed. This unit is very solid. It's quite heavy, which may add a good amount of weight to the base, and that could be beneficial for stabilizing. I'm gonna put the camera back. Sorry. So, well, with that said, I'm going to plug it in. We're going to look at the screen. We're going to look at the controls. We're going to see if it heats up. We're going to attempt to level the bed. And the fun part, we're going to see if it can melt some plastic. All right, guys, I had to run an extension cord real quick. Now I'm going to plug into the back of the machine. And this is the very first time I'm powering it up. I didn't do anything before turning on the camera. So let's hope it powers up and go. I hear, oh look, there we go. All right, have a nice little animation when it starts up, and here we have Wanhao 3D printer professional builder. I am not a professional talker, as you can see. Try to get it on the screen. So we have three options: system, tool, and print. For starters, I'm just going to touch system. It has a beep. Oh, okay. Now I'm just... And I just turned it into Chinese. Wow, okay. Let's see. Oh, okay, so that's something to... If you push system and you're staring at a camera, just randomly pushing buttons, you very well could turn your printer Chinese. So if you make that mistake, the very first button in the upper left-hand corner looks like you only have two options, Chinese and English. I assume that's Chinese. I'm apologizing if that's a different language. So, very responsive screen. I'm going to go to Tools. We can preheat, move axes, cool down, home all, disable all the motors, disable power. So I would assume disable power is more of a stop print. If I push it, so that'd be if I have a printer, if you have a print that's running, you go to Tools, disable power, that'll probably shut everything off mid-print. I'm going to load up their SD card, and so it goes, when you load the SD card, the little fingerprints go up, the little tabs go up. And there we have the OK G-code. That's the only thing that's in there right now. So before we do that, I'm going to level the bed. But first thing, I'm going to test the motors. I'm going to home the X. And it worked. That was actually really quiet. That was nice. So next I'll home the Y and make sure the switch, the limit switch works. That was less than quiet. One of my bearings seems to be a little noisy. Now the most important one, the Z. I'm going to home the Z and make sure that works. So all the motors are working, the screen's working, the motors are working, the end stops are working. I'm going to raise the ZX. One thing I haven't done yet is I completely forgot about checking my X-axis rods. To do that, generally, I just use something I always have on hand, which is my cell phone. There's a lot of ways to do this, you know, as far as blueprinting and everything like that. So I'm bringing this side right to the top of my cell phone right there. If I go over to this side, I can feel that that's a little too tight. So I'm raising it, and now this side is right flush with the top of my. So that's not perfect as I'm trying to work at an angle around the camera, but it should be enough just for me to get the basic bed leveling done. And then before I go to actually run the machine on my own parts, I can do a full blueprinting and make sure. But for the sake of the video, that would get close. And we'll be using the thumb wheels to level the bed. I've done this enough times. I generally don't mess with the sheet of paper too much. Oh, I just noticed one thing. The limit switch, while I had my head over here, I don't know if you can see, the limit switch now has 4 different settings. Before we had 2 holes for the limit switch. Hard to get a good. They made that easier. So there's quite a few little improvements that we're seeing. You know, the more that I go around this machine, the more I'm starting to see the different improvements. There we go. So now I'm just touching, whoops. See the touch screen. I guess you got to be careful when you're working around it, or you might bump that touch screen. Okay, the next step is going to be loading the filament and running a test print. Everything is already preheated. So to start loading the sample filament, I'm going to raise the Z-axis just a few clicks above the bed. So when I push the new filament through, it has room to purge out the old, and it's not pressed right against the bed. I have the spool holder up here already. I'm just going to hang that loosely, you know, keep an eye on it when it's printing. And there's a little lever. The tricky part is, and you get a feel for it, you have to find the second hole. There, I just found it. And now, yep, I can see I'm starting to push filament. I don't know if you can see that. But as I'm pushing, there the yellow is starting to come out. So we've got filament in there and everything's preheated. I'm going to go ahead and one thing, you know, again, I will add, there is something wrong with my Y-axis. I can hear it when this video is all done. I'm gonna actually pull this off and try to address the 3 bearings that are in there, or lack of bearings that are in there, because that's not a normal sound. but just to see what's coming out of the box, if we can get a test print out of it, is my main priority right now. So I'm going to go back, and I'll probably reposition the camera. Going to print. I'm going to select the OK G code that they have on there. So we're at 95, 96. And I'm going to reposition the camera to try to get a better view. Oops, see, I'm moving it, and I pushed the touch screen when I moved it. I can see that's going to be a problem getting in the way there. Looks like our first layer is going down well. That Y bed is quite noisy. Or the Y axis is quite noisy, but we're just going to let it print and we'll see what comes out. Alright guys, well I just finished the test print that came on the SD card. It's the OK symbol that many of us are familiar with. I have to admit, the issue that I have with the bed, that was a very noisy print to let it finish. I absolutely need to take this bed apart and try to find out exactly where that rattle is coming from. The print finished, you know, successfully. I took a time lapse of it. Let me pry this off the bed here. There we go. Now, it's not the smoothest that I've seen coming from previous machines, but I absolutely know it's because of the vibrations in that bed. Can't really get a close-up. I'll show a close-up picture of these two side by side. And I can see the kind of the ringing and the artifacts caused from whatever is going on with that bed. So it is a functional printer, however it's not as good as it can be, and there's an issue I'll have to go in and fix. I'm quite impressed with a couple things that I'm seeing. You know, we have the touchscreen, the full-size SD card, we have the upgraded cooling system, they've made some changes to the limit switch. To be said whether this ribbon cable is going to be a pro or a con, but really one thing that I'm impressed of is just how sturdy and solid this base is. I mean, it's a solid, heavy piece of equipment. I like that they updated the spool holder. The cons, you know, to be fair, well, for one, due to shipping, I had the problem where the extruder screws had come loose, and I have an issue with the bed. So that's something that definitely is a negative. But you know, you can blame that on shipping, you can blame that on quality control, whatever it is, it's something to take into account. Oh, one big plus before I sign off the video, the screen itself. I'm actually quite impressed with how nice the touch screen is. It's receptive, it's clear and crisp, it's a nice touch screen. I'm used to just some basic LCD displays that are on a lot of printers out there, you know, even the MakerBots and FlashForge, just your basic text interface. This one has a really nice look to it. The downside is it's sensitive, and so many times when I just went to go move the machine around for the video, I would accidentally touch something. And actually my first print, before I started doing the time lapse, I went to move the camera and I touched the printer and I stopped the print. So it's something you're going to have to really learn to stay away from. You know, maybe printing a little door that covers it or something. But for the most part, they've made a lot of improvements, and it definitely shows. Once I get this bed adjusted, if I come back to it and it's starting to run really nice, really consistently, then I say they do have a really nice machine on their hands. So with that, I'm going to wrap up this video. You know, you guys can be the judge whether you think, you know, the V2 version 2 or the version 2.1 fits into your budget, or some of these extras might be worth it in the long run. For me, I think I kind of like the new stuff. I like fancy stuff, and call me crazy, but just a regular size SD card. For me, that's worth that's worth probably more than it should be for me. I will be doing a follow-up video pretty shortly here. I'm actually really curious to know what board they have in the bottom, and they have that bottom plate bolted down pretty well. I'll probably pull that off while I'm addressing this bed rattle issue. So we'll see what's running this thing, because I want to know if they changed the board and made some improvements, if that's going to help some of those temperature fluctuations that people had on the older models, and we'll go from there. I thank you guys for watching this video. As always, I'll see you on the next video.